The 2008 film Jumper, this is a film that really has its problems. I don't really like this one simply because there's not enough character development and there are many plot holes within this one. And I must say overall, this film, it could have been something interesting, but ultimately the people that made this movie, they dropped the ball big time with this one. Man, what a missed opportunity this one was. So the story of this film is that a young man, David Rice, he is capable of teleporting anywhere he wants to, but when a secret society is intending on killing him, then he gets help from another jumper, and from there is one of the worst films I've seen back in the late 2000s. I must admit, there is a lot of things wrong with this movie. From the acting, from the lack of character development, to the rushed plot and how awful that ending was. And it all comes together to make a film that's barely watchable. And believe me, I have seen this film multiple times throughout the years. And I really had to say to myself, this movie here could have been better quality. But in my opinion, it just turned into a huge waste of time. For a film that's less than 90 minutes, this one goes by really slowly, it feels like. And it does a horrible job setting up the characters as well. The problem with this movie is while the visual shots was cool to look at, this one really doesn't have substance. Like all these characters are paper thin, they're cookie cutter, there's nothing really interesting about them, they're not likable. And there are some character arcs in this film that are actually never resolved, and so that makes this film even more underwhelming. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, this film could have been one of the best movies to come out in 2008, but it just turned into an outright disaster. Now, this film is based off the 1992 book of the same name. Maybe I'll get to it one day, read through it. But overall, I heard positive things from that book. But this movie right here is flat out boring. Now, there are some interesting things about this film, such as when they teleport. It looks cool, not as cool as Nightcrawler teleporting in X-Men 2. But overall, I did like those action sequences. But man, the lack of character development really hurts this film. David Rice, he's a unlikable character. Like, I get what Hayden Christensen was trying to do with that role, but overall his acting didn't improve the character, if that makes any sense. Like, David Rice, basically, he robs banks. There's a TV playing in front of him where there's people in trouble. I was saying, dude, he could have saved those people. He could have been the hero. He is not a superhero whatsoever. He's not a likable character. And quite frankly, I just can't understand how him and Millie connected so much, considering how much of how terrible he is. Let's just leave it at that. And speaking of Millie, she's a character not really interesting. Literally, I just didn't care about what she was going through because she's not a character you can root for. And then there is Jamie Bell playing Griffin O'Connor. I was like, okay, he's another jumper, but we don't really know much about his backstory. He's not an interesting character either. There's no interesting characters in this film. Even Samuel L. Jackson, well, he couldn't save this movie. His acting was alright. But considering this was a secret society hunting down jumpers, there's a lot they could have done with that. They don't get into any backstory of those characters either, the secret society. And it's not just the lack of character development that really hurts this film, but considering the actors that was in this one could have been worthwhile. This movie is underwhelming. It has terrible plot holes. The ending is just downright awful. And it's a movie I'm probably not going to go back to rewatch no time soon. And nothing against the acting in this, but it is much to be desired. But overall, I think this film is quite the dumpster fire. I'm giving this film a 5 out of 10. When I first saw this film all those years ago, I really felt like this was one of the worst films that came out in 2008. And quite frankly, even nearly 15 years later, this movie has aged pretty poorly in my opinion. Now, Doug Liman, the director of this film, he's directed some great movies throughout the years, such as Mr. and Mrs. Smith, The Bourne Identity, and Edge of Tomorrow. But he's also directed some awful films such as Lockdown and Chaos Walking. Besides, a movie's awful if you can't even get your main character right, if you can't get him to be likable. This is a movie that could turn into a great trilogy, but it just turned into a wasted potential to say the least. And that's my review of the film Jumper. Okay, leave your comments down below in the section and let me know what you think about this movie. Alright, this is Slim Guy 172 saying, peace out.